The world's largest Viking treasure has been found in a very unusual place on the small island of Gotland in the middle of the Baltic Sea. Why Gotland of all places?
That is a good question. I think it has to do with how Gotland is situated in the middle of the Baltic Sea. When we entered the Viking Age around 800, then Gotland already had a long tradition of trading with Southern Europe and Eastern Europe. In that sense, it's not so strange. It is a bit odd that so much silver has been found here. The explanation for that is probably just in small parts the situation, but I think also that Gotlanders did a lot of trading in the east with, for example, slaves. And it seems like Gotlanders was not only a part of that, but also quite leading in the slave trade between Scandinavia and Far East or the Russian area.
And here we are at the Gotland Museum, where you have a large quantity of this treasure. Can you show us some highlights from this collection?
I'm happy to. Let's go. This room that we're in now is dedicated to just one silver hoard, and that is this hoard called Spillings hoard. That was found in 1999 in Spillings farm, or nearby Spillings farm on northeastern Gotland. This hoard contains of 2 bags of silver, together like 67 kilos of silver, and 1 chest filled with bronze artifacts.
Do we know anything why it was hidden? Why would someone do that?
Yeah, there are of course several ideas about that. One, war times. That is one idea, that you would hide it. Another one is that stuff that you don't need, that we put in a safe or a bank account today. Yeah. As they didn't have that, they put it away, and they might use it like the next year or so. So there was no need for it in the daily life. And a third idea is that it's a sacrifice. It's offered to the gods for wealth and a good life.
As I understand it, this is a treasure that's very varied with different materials. Do you mind showing us some small parts of it?
Yeah, let's have a look.
I'm excited.
This silver, a lot of it that was not coins, was tangled into each other to reach certain weight. So we can see, we know pretty good how the Vikings measured and how they weighed things. We know that they used a weight system called the marker system or mark system, and this is tied together so it reaches certain weight. So it seems like this silver hoard was made into a payment for something very exclusive or very expensive.
So on these bracelets, they have decorations. Why did that matter when it was all about the weight? Why go through that process?
I think the silver had its value in its weight, but you can also increase the value by doing something of the material, like we do with most stuff today. You refine something into a new kind of artifact that is more sought after. So this might be stuff that was never sold on the market, and then it becomes just silver again. Then it can be reused as silver or means of payment.
And how did a scale during this time look like? Fortunately, an example of a scale turned out to be right by it.
This here is a scale, and they also had weights that they could balance the stuff they're weighing with. And we know that the Gotland people were very good at using these scales. By using a scale and also a knife to cut in the silver, they could decide the quantity of silver in a coin, for example. And we can see that the Arabic coins that came to Gotland before 990 in huge amounts, that is like 97% silver, so it's a very pure silver coin. And before they get it here, when they trade, they cut it and they weigh it to see that it's a solid coin. So when the Arabic people start mixing copper or other metals into the silver coins, Gotland people stops straight away trading with them. And we don't get the coins to Gotland with any copper in. But on the Swedish mainland, that were more not so used to silver as the Gotland traders, they continued to get the copper coins also for a while because it looks like silver coins. So the Gotland traders seem to be very well educated in dealing with silver.
That's so fascinating. So there must have been quite a divide between Gotland and rest of Sweden during this time. Do we know anything about the difference in the society, Gotland compared to mainland Sweden?
Yes and no. People are people. A lot of things are the same, and good ideas travel fast. I think that we can see, for example, on Gotland, that Odin is a more important god, which be one explanation behind all these silver hoards. And perhaps Thor was a more important god on the Swedish mainland. So there are details that we are lacking. I guess that with the amounts of silver on Gotland, we have like 800 known silver hoards. I think it's 75% of all silver from Sweden is found on Gotland, and Gotland is like 0.7% of Sweden.
Yeah,
so it's
nothing in comparison.
No. So in that sense, I guess if you and I were like neighbors, we wouldn't trade with silver. We would trade with, I give you a cow and you give me 2 sheep or something. I think that silver had a deflated value here on Gotland, but on the Swedish mainland, for example, or in Denmark, or in today's Estonia or Latvia, silver would give you so much more than it would on Gotland. So that might be a reason behind all the silver hoards. You didn't need it in your daily life.
So silver is something more international. Do we know anything about the trading partners during this time?
Well, we can see
of
that.
Gotland.
Yeah, we can see that before, say, 990, all silver coins are from the Arabic countries. If Gotlanders went all the way to Itil in the Khazars or to Bulgaria, today's Bulgaria. They probably did. Some of them probably did. And these coins were so sought after because of the purity in the silver. And I think also they had over there in Itil and in Bulgaria, they had those big slave markets that could be one of the reasons behind the silver. Because Gotland doesn't have natural resources in that way that could be sold off. We have no mines, maybe some oaks that could be turned into boats, perhaps. That was also valuable, but not so much that it can explain huge amounts of silver. Slavery or slave trade could be one reason behind that.
So many things catches my eye. Like, what are these?
These, we call them silver bars. There's been most likely silver coins that were melted to this shape. Probably they started as coins and then became these kind of silver bars or silver material really, and then turned into these bracelets that we talked about before. So, but this can also be obviously a silver weight. I can pay you with this if we agree of a certain price or a certain weight for something. I think that these is probably more a payment, and this could be something that has an increased silver value. Many of these were made into these kind of bracelets.
This is a bit exciting because this is bronze.
Yes.
We have been looking at silver before, and I'm curious, what relationship did bronze have to silver at this time?
Bronze is the most used material when it comes to jewelry. We don't have so much silver jewelry really compared to the bronzes. All daily items were of bronze or a copper alloy or iron. So silver is more of a dressed up thing, and these are the common materials. We tend to evaluate silver much higher. That could be right, but we have, as I said, like 800 silver hoards, and we have 5 of the bronze hoards. In that sense, I think that bronze should be evaluated slightly higher than we do today. We tend to see it as something that you wear and that goes into the graves and goes out of circulation, while silver is still in circulation. This one here was dug down in the same house. They lifted the floorboards and just put it under the floor and covered it again. And this contains of only Baltic jewelry from today's Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania. And it seems like someone tried to melt it down. That didn't do too well with that. But I guess this was brought to Gotland because these jewelry were probably quite useless here. You couldn't sell them, you couldn't do anything with them, but they had their value as bronze. So I think that they bought it over there, took it here to remake and do a Gotland jewelry out of it.
Is there any like aesthetic differences between the jewelry that was from the Baltic countries compared to like Sweden, Gotland or Norway, for example?
It's a big difference, really. These dress pins, for example, are typically Baltic. Those clover-shaped, huge dress pins. Gotland are in the middle of the Baltic. So we have like equal distance to the Baltic shores as to Sweden. And these three regions, Sweden, Gotland and the Baltic, have very strong material expression that is unique for their respective areas. We can have a look at the Gotland artifacts that would be the same function as these Baltic dress pins. They are more brooches, used in pairs like these, but much smaller. And those style, and they are unique for Gotland. They are not in use anywhere else. Here, in this case, behind this glass, we have one of these typical Gotland jewelry that a few of them have actually been found outside of Gotland, but it's always made on Gotland. That is so typical. It's also a female brooch that kind of tied the scarf, and it was here in the front of the chest. The scarf was kind of tied together with that one.
But the amount of details on this one is incredible, and I've seen this on many other of these smaller jewelries. How did they make this?
Some time ago, people thought that they used child labor, that kids were doing. But then we realized that you could use actually these rock crystals as magnifiers. So you can use them as magnifier glasses so they can enlarge the picture when you are working. You would be able to do the more detailed work.
Oh, I see, because these rock crystals again look very decorative. I would have assumed that these were jewels.
Yeah, they were also jewelry. They were used in necklaces and stuff, but they also have a function, and that is as a magnifier.
Swedish practicality right there.
Yeah, it's. I know in Germany it's called the Visby lenses because they are so kind of rare for Gotland.
So Per, we have so much jewelry here, so much silver and bronze and different things, but you insist on these things in iron is actually very interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think so for a couple of reasons, but I think that mainly iron is something that we lose over time. It just rusts away. Silver is well preserved. So we have plenty of silver, we have quite a bit of gold and bronzes, those precious metals, but the iron is gone in most cases. But this is we call them kleinsmiths, the smiths that did the fine goods, the jewelry and stuff. And this was probably not a wealthy worker, but a hard-working man, and not in the top of society like most of the silver comes from. And we can see that he's got the small pieces of glass, probably from the Mediterranean area where it was once mosaic, and also the small garnets here, the red garnets that are from Sri Lanka.
All the way from Sri Lanka?
All the way from Sri Lanka, from the Mediterranean Sea. It was brought to Gotland so they can refine it to new jewelry.
So with these tools we get a small insight of the ordinary day life.
Like the working people's life, a bit rare for us.
So here we have a new display. I see that necklace there. It's again the magnifying stones. I see what you said before about it could be used as a necklace too.
Yeah.
Do you think that you could give us like some highlights from this?
Some highlights from this.
Yes.
In this case, we can see that there are some of the coins have been turned into jewelry also, been hanging around the neck. There are also some fingerings that are quite common Viking style. With this, we have silver beads that are huge. We do have silver beads every now and then in the necklaces, but not of this size.
These are extravagant.
Yeah, they are. And this is, I'm sure, for showing off. The Vikings were a lot into that, and to show the standard of their family. So the name, the family name and the family traditions were so important for the status that you had in society. Showing that in wealth is really, really important. I think we can see that also over here in this part, where we can see gold beads that were even more valuable than these silver beads. Gold is kind of rare, and we have around 800 silver hoards, and in them I think there are like 8, 9, perhaps 10 that includes gold objects. Oh. So it's not very common. And down here we can also see a
cross.
Yeah, it is a little cross. It's a cross in itself, but also with the arms being crosses themselves, and that is supposed to be in its original to show the missionary function in 4 different directions: east, west, south, and north. I don't know if it had any religious meaning for the person in Etelhem parish on southern Gotland who once wore it, but in the origin it's supposed to show some of the Christian mission.
So this is still the Viking era, but Christianity has arrived.
We can't say for sure that Christianity had arrived, but we can say that objects from Christianized areas do come to Gotland. And I'm sure that some people on Gotland, especially people that traded in the harbors, they met Christian people, and some of them probably wanted to trade with other Christians, so that some adopted Christianity quite early in the 11th century.
And how would you place this cross? Was it something that you wore as a necklace, or was it around your wrist?
I think this was absolutely wore as a necklace. I don't know if it was on its own, but I can imagine it was, because it's a very powerful object and of gold. Stands good for itself. I'd like to show you this, because this hoard is, I think, a good example of travelers. And the Vikings were known for their travels and journeys and adventures. And from Gotland, with the situation it has in the Baltic Sea, we seem to have traveled more towards the eastern part of the world. And these coins, there are slightly over 80, in a strange combination from between 910 and 930. And it seems like a Gotland person has been traveling along the Silk Road. All of these coins are made in 5 different places along the Silk Road.
So this is a Viking that has been traveling without a ship, by foot?
I guess both. It seems at least a person have been traveling along that road, and this is the result of the trade on the way. I think that also cloth, spices, furs, perhaps other things were bought and traded and brought back home. So this is probably the metal result of that trade, while the spices and clothes are long gone.
Yeah. This is what's left.
Yeah, but I think if we can see how much silver coins from the Far East and Iraq and the Arabic-speaking area, I guess that would be in a similar number of clothes and other beautiful artifacts that doesn't last so good as metal do.
Thank you so much, Per, for having me today. It's been very educational, and I love this, of course. I just want to end with, why do you think this is important today to learn about this?
That is a good question, and I've been thinking about that a lot. I mean, we can see contacts over the years. We can see what was important and what wasn't. But is it important? I don't know. It's fun, it's interesting, it fascinates people. But I would like us to learn a bit more from history. I don't think we do that enough. I think if we wanted to learn from history and studied history for the sake of learning, not to do the same mistakes as we keep doing, I think then history would be much more important than it is, because we don't use it like that today. We tend to want to do the same mistakes over and over again. Each generation want to make their own mistakes. So in that sense, I'm not so sure it is important, but it could be.
Thank you, Per.
Thank you.
Wise words.
Thank you.